Um, we could even have like AI powered summaries of stuff. But I think we could also just keep the weekly DAO meeting tighter and just have a little bit more of an agenda to know what we're talking about and get through everything in a timely manner as well.
Absolutely. And I have a very generalized kind of agenda of events today. We'll go in order, I guess, and try and get as much done as we can in our like hour and a half ish.
Mhm.
Oh, what's this? Gravy.
Mama!
I like that. Love that actually. Oh man. All right. Okay. So I have. Actually, I'll share this with you guys. This is the Notion page. This is where I'll start just putting the meeting notes down. If you guys want to catch up after, share this with you. Copy web link. Okay, this should be the public link. Correct me if I'm wrong. But this is the meeting notes. If you go there, it just has what we're going to be talking about today. So I'd like to start off first of all, actually, to see if the Governor DAO reps are in here. If there's someone representing Governor DAO, because we are going to be talking, or we would like to talk about Governor DAO this morning. If um, what was his name? If the person
I
who's
think it's Jeff.
Jeff, yeah, okay.
Jeff.
Yeah, if Jeff is in here from Governor Dow, I see Jeff is in here, so why don't we get him up on stage? We'll start off with Jeff, and we can talk about Governor Dow and user verification and what they're doing there with that. GM, good morning, sir.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good, good.
Hi.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Oh yeah.
All right. I'm West Coast, so if I'm a little groggy, I apologize.
Right there with you, man.
Yeah, so how would you guys like to start this off?
So I guess we can start off with maybe what you guys are doing at Governor Dow, and you know the product that would be most relevant for Avagachi, you know, with our users, and specifically pertaining to scholars and maybe non-asset owners. And so maybe we can start with like what Governor Dow is and what you guys have been working on.
Yeah, definitely. So for everyone in the room, I'm my real name is Zane, but go by Jeff the Baker since forever, Green Jeff. I'm the co-founder of Governor DAO. I also do most of the smart contract engineering and a lot of just the generalized um, look and feel, who we are, what's our community, what's our focus, the strategy, the biz dev, all that good stuff. And Governor DAO is something that we launched just under 2 years ago, and it's kind of this loose collective of individuals who all agree that the the North Star principles of DAOs and decentralization are very, very important, very powerful unlockers, which I anticipate a lot of people in Aavegotchi might agree with. But it's hard to do that. It's hard for most people to figure out how to do it. The Aavegotchi DAO is incredibly diverse and active, um, and I think very effective. But that's definitely a not the norm throughout the industry. So we do a lot of different products, services, expertise type stuff to help people do decentralization better. Our flagship build out as a result of that is what is most relevant to Aavegotchi, and that is our Sybil resistance protocol. So we have at a very high level this system where anyone in the world can sign up. It takes about a minute. And if you sign up, you have essentially this label that's attached to your address. This label is a non transferable ERC20 token that you can mint yourself, and then anyone else in the world can look for ownership of that non-transferable token, and they can human gate whatever it is they're doing. So In the case of Aavegotchi, if certain permissions, privileges, interactions were gated behind an ownership of this ERC20 token on your address, then you could prevent people that are taking advantage of whatever it is by running a whole bunch of different accounts with bots and all that good stuff. So essentially, we are what we think to be the best uh, viable solution for Aavegotchi to um, enable Sybil resistance anywhere and everywhere throughout their game.
Yeah, very cool. And I think you guys use a concept called proof of existence, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's the name of our protocol, proof of existence.
Okay, and that's this. I guess this is a token that is essentially like soul bound to that wallet, right?
Correct.
Okay, very cool. And so we have people who rent our Avagachis, and they'll go, before where we're at right now, we had spillover turned on, so they could collect ERC20 tokens that would be in the Gotchiverse, and it kind of got out of hand with the bots and farming. So for someone who's going to be renting assets, maybe we can talk about like an example use case. With this, how would the user interact with this governor proof of existence token, and then from then on, would they be verified? I guess to go rent an Avagachi. So it'd be like a initial step with Governor DAO. They'd have to do some sort of, I guess, is there registration or some KYC to get this token?
Yeah, so I mean, ultimately, you can plug PoE into wherever it is that makes the most sense. So if the primary concern is that someone is renting out 1,000 Avegachis and then just botting with them, you can gate certain rentals behind ownership of proof of existence. You can maybe have a limited number of gotchis, unless you have proof of existence or something like that. Um, and essentially, the way that the sign up works is it's no KYC, it's 100% anonymity preserving. We use a method that is called biometric encryption. So basically, you input your face and voice data, and then that data gets fed through this API that encrypts it. It spits out this one-way output hash, and then the hashes get compared to all of the other hashes from people who have signed up. So the only information is stored is that encrypted one-way hash. There's no way to pull back the sensitive information, and the sensitive information is discarded after it's hashed. And you can see that for yourself by going through the dev console. You can see the size of the export, and if your sensitive data were being extracted, that would be a much larger activity from your device. And so it's in our opinion, it's the first of all the best working way to do Sybil resistance, and it also does it in a way that it's very simple to sign up. It's very accessible. It's very easy to integrate as well, and yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of good conversation about how it can prevent botting the spillover, the spillage, but it also unlocks conversations about new type of gameplay elements that could be introduced that you can't really introduce without having a confidence that each player is just one account.
Right, right. So, I guess are there any example cases where Governor DAO has implemented proof of existence across maybe some other games or other kind of areas in crypto that were being botted, and how effective was it that with those in those specific cases?
hmm Yeah, we haven't done any game stuff yet, actually. It was kind of a blind spot for us. One of our community members, Zombo Breaker, is also really into Aavegotchi, and he kind of started the conversation a couple years back, and a couple months back, and it was kind of like a aha light bulb moment. But outside of gaming, we've done about a dozen or so integrations. Mostly it is gating NFT mints. So if you're doing a free mint, or if you're doing a very limited or hyped NFT mint, and you want to make sure that uh, one person gets one mint, we do that, and that's been very effective. We did a kind of a case study of this 100 mint kind of social club collection, and it was perfect. You had 100 mints. It went like that, but it was 100 different people, and we could prove that it was 100 different people. And um, yeah, so mostly NFT mints. We've also done it for provably decentralized token sales. You don't want a whale that's botting up, half the supply at launch. And we also do it for quadratic voting in DAO governance.
Yeah, very interesting. I see a question from Mark. He's asking, do you guys make sure that one person can't pass proof of existence? I guess that goes back to that transaction hash, or that the hash that's generated by the user when they create their profile, biometric profile. Would that be what you'd be using, or is there any way to prevent someone from making 2 of these or 3 of these?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
essentially the hash that the person produces will be the same hash every time they try to go through the process. It's it's holistic enough that if you have a cold, you grow out your facial hair, you're on a different device, and it's at night, it'll still produce the same output hash. So essentially, the hashes are those hashes are stored and compared. And if you essentially, if you sign up, and if it's your first time and you haven't done it, it'll say, okay, great, the wallet you connected with will be eligible to mint their own proof of existence token, that's soulbound ERC20. If you've already signed up before and you try to do it again on another wallet, it'll flag you as a duplicate.
Okay, to me that's really interesting, because oftentimes, with botting, it's users having multiple accounts or multiple devices. This would be a little bit more. It would be actually a lot more difficult, I guess, in that case, where it would you'd have to significantly change your face, to actually be able to be recognized as someone else, right?
Yeah, and I mean the industry standard of accuracy is either 99.9 or 99.99% accurate. So if there was any type of abuse, I think legally we can't say 100%, but any type of abuse would be a very, very, very infrequent one-off situation. As I understand, even identical twins don't pass as an edge case. It'll properly recognize as two different people.
Okay, interesting. Um, we have Supreme Pablo asking, what about compromised wallet? What if a user created their wallet, they verified with Governor DAO, and
Mhm.
and now, for whatever reason their wallet might have got compromised? What are the steps the user might need to take
Yeah,
to re-verify?
that's a great question. So we have the ability to burn tokens as well as clear enrollments. So essentially, if someone has signed up and then their wallet gets compromised at a future date, what we can do is we can burn their proof of existence token, and then we can clear their enrollment, so that hash is removed from the database, and they can start over on their fresh, uncompromised wallet. Right now, that is a process that is manually done. However, we have on our roadmap kind of a self-serve burn your authentication that might have some type of like cooldown to prevent someone like burning and minting across a whole bunch of different ones, like to kind of bypass it. But essentially, the way that would work is um, your hash you'll still produce the same hash, so you can go in on a different wallet, produce, kind of verify with the same hash, and then authorize, clear your enrollment, purge it. Maybe we have like a 3-day buffer or a 7-day buffer or 1-day buffer or whatever's safe. After that time, the compromised wallet will get purged, and then you can go through it again on your new wallet. And the buffer being a prevention against someone saying like, okay, there's like there's a mint going on, and I'm just gonna burn and roll clear over and over again, so I can still mint 100 times on 100 different wallets.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, it's definitely important to have some sort of way to address that. So that's awesome. Um, and so, if Gachi Gang decided they want to implement governor, I would, honestly, my assumption is that a lot of the Gachi Gang members who are asset holders maybe are not interested in this. But I think the primary user we're trying to address here is the asset renters, like non-asset owners and scholars coming to the game and trying to collect the spillover would be the biggest group or the largest group we're trying to address. And so, if we want to implement this, how easily or how quickly would this be able to be implemented on our side? I guess, it's we would have to look at it ourselves too. But from your perspective, I guess.
Yeah, so Aavegotchi being a set of smart contracts plus a video game on top of it, there's uh, a little bit more nuance that I'm not too familiar with because I don't understand exactly how your game interacts with the contracts. But generally, the way you integrate proof of existence is just is some combination of one line of code that is a requirement function in whatever the smart contract calls, saying basically require that the address interacting has a balance of this token. If they don't meet the requirement, they can't interact, and that's how you can human gate from a non-authenticated address. Dan, did you have something to
Yeah,
add?
I was just gonna say we could either do it on the contract side, for example, like Gachi lending, or on the Gachiverse side, where the user is actually playing. We could just have a quick check on our side on our server to check if they have that balance in their wallet, and if not, just not let them in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so either or. That part is very simple.
Yeah,
And then I think that the real conversation is more so how do you want to um kind of thread the needle and kind of start to play around with this. I recommended on the forums, and this is I'm I have an Aavegotchi now, so I understand the Gotchi verse somewhat, but I'm still kind of learning the ropes. But what I recommended is some kind of low stakes opt in kind of event that if people wanted to test this out and they wanted to be kind of the Aavegotchi live beta users, they could do it. And what I had recommended was like a some like common wearable dispenser where like if you hold the PoE token, you can get like this common shirt that says human verified or something like that. And then kind of use that as like a test case um if if it works, if people are able to sign up, if it's accurate, if it's actually preventing multiple accounts, and you guys have more confidence, then you can kind of ramp up the stakes of where it's integrated.
I have a couple questions here, and that sounds like that could be pretty fun. A couple questions,
Mhm.
just basic stuff. So desktop versus mobile. Do you guys have a mobile app as well, or is
So
it
it's all
desktop only
browser
right now?
based. It does
Okay.
support mobile. It's not optimized towards mobile, but it does work with the asterisk of you can't do it through the MetaMask browser directly because MetaMask doesn't let you access camera and microphone. What you have to do is go through Chrome or Safari or whatever, connect there, and then use Wallet Connect to connect to your MetaMask if you're a mobile user that has MetaMask. So
Okay.
you can still do it, but it's kind of an asterisk of there's a little bit of a quirk that you need to look out for.
Okay. I mean, right now the Gachiverse is also browser based, so probably not a big issue. But I guess, do you guys plan to have more mobile, like a mobile app at some point?
Yeah, a mobile app is kind of on our roadmap. I outlined some of in the post. I outlined a whole bunch of the kind of UI UX improvements we plan to make over time, and that would be a longer term, but like at some point we would want to have a mobile app.
Got it. Under the hood, you guys are using Finavant. Is that correct?
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm just gonna post this. This is they have a nice FAQ on their website. I don't know how much of this applies to you guys. Probably most of it, but I did see one question under security. It says, "Is my voice and facial print stored securely in the cloud or on device?" And it says, depending on the use case, it may reside on device or in the cloud. So for you guys, I mean, you're using Finavant under the hood. Do you have to send something to them, and then do they store it on their server somewhere?
Yeah, so essentially, our use case is um, not their most standard one. Typically, Finavant is doing step-up authentication, which means you have your biometric uh, kind of print stored in your banking app, for example. And then if you want to do something very risky, like move $1 million, they ask you to say, yes, I want to do that. And so
Mm.
it knows someone isn't hacking your account. For our system, since we're not storing that that complete print, the it's a cloud based because we're on the browser, but what goes to the cloud is just the hash plus the wallet address plus the time you signed up.
Okay, so you guys don't have to actually upload any information to Finavant servers with like screens, like videos of the users.
I think the answer is no, with the kind of the caveat that right when you sign up is your information goes and it passes through the API.
Hmm. The API is on their side, like that's a
Yes.
Finavant API.
Hmm.
So, I mean, probably do they? It's likely that they're probably storing that on their server somewhere, or what do you think?
My understanding is that it gets discarded after it gets
Mm,
hashed. So it
okay.
would be, it would be in their system so long as it needs to get hashed, which is it takes like 30 seconds.
Okay. Have they ever put that kind of information out and for that people could kind of is there any transparency into that process? Just curious because I know people in the community are going to be asking these kind of questions
Yeah,
about
definitely.
this service.
Yeah, and it's a very important discussion that we're having a ton internally because we understand this is our uh, the biggest kind of friction that we have. Um, so Finavant has as a biometrics provider, they're subject to um, different types of verifications and certificates in terms of um, data practices, security practices, all that good stuff. And they have when they uh, when they have an integration with like a bank or a insurance company, I think are the two big ones that they do. They have some type of internal security audit that is performed that kind of shows the bank that this is safe and secure for what you want to do. um, with that being said, most of that information cannot be made public because it has information um, like administrative privileges are kind of like a multi-sig that are split between XYZ different individuals, and you wouldn't want to have those individuals kind of listed and out in the public. um, what we plan to do to kind of holistically address the notion of okay, how do I trust a centralized third party biometrics provider is, if you guys are familiar with the Gitcoin passport, which
Yeah.
is it has like a whole bunch of different identity ones, and hopefully actually we're in discussion with Gitcoin, so proof of existence soon, knock on wood.
Cool.
We would like to have kind of a biometrics passport. Of right now we just use Finavant as kind of proof of existence version 1. Proof of existence version 2 will be Finavant plus provider ABCD, and then any users that are more sensitive about the biometric component and what happens with that information, they have more agency to say, I'm going to look through all of these ones and I'm going to see which one has um, the best material out there. Finavant's not the biggest provider. There are much bigger ones that are used in um, like going through airport security, for example. We can access those same APIs, and that has a higher level of I think confidence from a layman seeing that, oh yeah, I've actually already used this because I went on a flight and they took a picture
Yeah.
of my face or whatever.
I was talking with someone from Lens, and I think there's a solution that they're also looking into. Have you heard anything about that solution?
Yeah,
I don't
so
wanna drop too
yeah,
much if it's not really that public yet.
yeah, Lens is working on an integration with WorldCoin, and I'm happy to share kind of what I think are some of the disadvantages with WorldCoin. I was in New York recently, and I they had their orb set up, so I went through the whole process myself just to kind of see everything they have, and there's definitely a handful of uh, points of contention that I think there is. Obviously, I'm biased because I'm a competitor, but the way that WorldCoin works is first and foremost you have to like travel to an orb, which is not very
Yeah.
accessible. But beyond that, they do store like demographic information that they say they only do during the beta. This is in their app, and you can't opt out of it. They also store your it's an iris scan, so they also store your sensitive iris scan. You can opt out of that, but because they're using their first party AI that they've kind of developed themselves, they have to train it, and they need eyeballs to train it. So they encourage you to give them your sensitive iris info, and then beyond that, when you sign up, you have to download their app, and that app will make a wallet address for you. So your human verification
Oh,
is on a new wallet address. You can't tie it to your Gotchi stuff. Um, and then the Lens integration is you scan a QR code from your app, and then you connect a wallet separately, and that opens up the attack vector of if I just scan someone's phone with their WorldCoin app, I can be as many humans as I want. Our solution is tied to your own wallet, your own private key, and that makes it much more difficult to collude like that. So
okay.
the WorldCoin approach is, I don't think the WorldCoin approach is as good. Also, the way that Avagachi would integrate, I think, is more it requires more work because you have to incorporate the SDK and whatnot. Hopefully, in the future, proof of existence can have a similar integration into Lens, and we could have a similar POE check mark.
There was another one I can't really give because this is kind of it was a conversation I was having, but there's another solution that is also being worked on. I don't know if you know about it, but basically it's like a proof of liveness, and they're also using a hash, and it sounds very similar to Governor DAO. So if I don't know if you're aware of that or not, but it might be like a competitor to you guys, and I
There's
think that Live
Is
is
that
kind or Lens
Humina?
is no, another one.
Okay. I mean, I have our pitch deck with a handful of them. There are a few besides WorldCoin's the biggest one, but there are a few other biometric um, Sybil resistance providers, but a lot of them are a biometric KYC match. So basically, you take a selfie with your driver's license or whatever, and you have to verify the driver's license is real, and the biometrics component says that the face is also the same as the one on the license. But um, in my mind, that kind of defeats the purpose. I don't know if the proof of liveness one has an ID match like that.
It honestly it sounds very similar to what you guys are doing. I'll ask my contact if I
Hmm.
can like, ask you about it with the name. But so the main I mean I think either way will probably work like your solution or their solution. They both sound really great. One question I keep coming back to is like with this solution, how do we prevent I'm sure there's going to emerge a market of like black market trading of I guess they would have to trade the private key of wallets in some way, but like how do we is there a way to in the future have you guys thought about this at all like a future where people are kind of doing like mechanical Turk in a way and just
Hmm.
everyone is everyone's uploading their selfie and getting the wallet, getting the POE, and all of
Mhm.
that, and then just like selling that account to like to blockchain, gamers and things like that, botters.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of on the back of our mind that if proof of existence is much bigger, people are gonna look for more sophisticated ways to exploit it, and I think what you outlined is the most likely attack vector. Um, it's not a great vector because unless there was some type of very sophisticated build out just for this, it's difficult to um, essentially share private keys in a way that doesn't
Yeah.
introduce security risks
Yeah.
to the attacker. But what we plan to have in the future, way down the road, is some metrics of on-chain social graph type stuff, and at that point, it would look like more reactive, like pattern matching to try to see if someone is abusing it in that way. The nice
Right.
thing is that I think the way that would work would still require some type of coordination between those black market wallets in terms of them going out and playing games or minting NFTs or whatever, and that should make it uh, able to uncover and kind of blacklist the at least the most extreme exploiters. If someone has a handful of wallets, that might be difficult to
Mhm.
pinpoint, but if someone was attacking on the scale of dozens or hundreds, I think we would be able to sniff that out pretty easily.
Do you guys know of any platforms that are like already doing this? Do you have any on your radar?
uh these type of attacks,
Yeah, well, yeah, like private key sharing.
none that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I haven't heard of any either. It seems like if it once we get to PoE, someone's probably going to create a solution somewhere that tries to do it. But yeah, I agree, it's a tough problem to solve. Then the other question is, like, AI is obviously getting very, very good. Is there any worry that AI could just generate a bajillion number of faces
Mhm.
and not just faces, and be able to animate them to say the phrase?
Yeah, today that's not possible, and to my understanding is that's kind of a vector that the entire biometrics industry is um, conscientious of. It affects pretty much everything in biometrics, and my understanding is there's a strong confidence that that's not a concern, at least for the foreseeable future.
Okay.
Yeah, right on. Thank you for giving us the breakdown and sharing what you guys are doing at Governor DAO, and we'll, I guess, take more feedback from the rest of the DAO and see if this is something that we could maybe possibly, if this is something that could be implemented. But thank you for sharing that with us
Yeah.
this morning.
Super,
Yeah,
super
definitely.
helpful.
And I know you guys have a very big big to do with this call day, so I appreciate you guys giving me so much time on the stage.
Yeah, absolutely. All
Cool.
right.
All right. Thanks so much.
Yep.
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 Bye
Thanks,
bye.
guys. So our post is up on the forums for everyone to check out. I appreciate
Cool.
it,
Yeah.
guys.
Let me drop that here in the
Yeah,
chat.
absolutely. So next up, we'll be having Mikey J. I see Dr. Wagme's in the house. I'm not sure if you have other things going on, but we'll be having either both or one, Mikey J, coming up, and we'll be talking about, um, we'll be starting this long-term conversation around DAO structure and what the DAO would like the structure to look like. We have an initial kind of template slash organogram chart that we'd like to share with the DAO, but also leave it as an open discussion for you guys to provide input and really help us develop this out, and so that we can have a little bit more accountability and at least some roles and responsibilities in the DAO to keep moving things forward. Because In the current loosely managed state, it can be somewhat difficult to get projects going or to identify projects or to smooth certain processes in the DAO. I guess that's the point. And so I will present, I'll call you guys up if you're available, Mikey J or Dr. Wagme. I see both of them actually. Welcome, fellas. GM.
Hey guys.
GM.
And so actually, you guys are all playing around on the Miro board. We're working also on a separate board that will be, because this is a long-term discussion, we don't want this information to get lost. And you are also free to play around with the sticky notes and add your own sticky notes. So if you're on the Miro board, if you hit N, that's the hotkey for sticky notes, you can lay down another one. I put a few empty ones there, so feel free to double click and ask your questions there. But I will share this Miro board with you guys so you can also play around with it. Please, if you are going to click on anything in here, make sure that your clicker is set to the grabbing function so you're not moving anything around. So let me just paste that. That's that one there, and this will be the working board for DAO structure. So you can maybe bookmark that somewhere in your tab and follow along as we try and work this out. What is this going to look like? And so we've just taken input from some DAO members right now that maybe have some experience with this, but we would, of course, again, I'll reiterate, like to get the DAO's input on this. This is not going to be any sort of unanimous decision, and I know the opposition towards hierarchical structures and that sort of thing, and we don't want to give people that notion. So I'll just preface this whole conversation with that first. Yes, very long-term discussion. And so and the second point to iterate is we would like the DAO's opinion as a whole on a lot of these aspects. If you come from a background where you're experienced with this sort of thing, we would definitely like your feedback. So like say good morning, guys, and I guess we can kick it off by just starting out with your opinions on what we really need as a DAO in terms of structure. And then I know, Mikey J, you've worked on this quite a bit, so maybe we can kind of go through it together.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so what I kind of wanted to touch on today was just the notion of accountability in the DAO. I think like the DAO has been a great place for ideation, for coming up with ideas and getting feedback and iterating on those ideas. However, like a lot of what the DAO does really requires Pixelcraft to be the kind of the hand of the DAO to bring that work to fruition. And, as we move the DAO along into further stages of its evolution, there's going to be a point where it's going to need to be able to create more of its own work product. And I think you're already starting to see calls for this and examples of this within the DAO. For the most part, the DAO has really, through most of its history, just relied upon members sort of volunteering their time or taking their own initiative to kind of put work together and present it in front of the DAO. And I think the creation of the DTF and the DTF sort of grant structure has been really helpful because it's given the DAO the ability to be able to compensate some of the work. And I think because of that, there's been a lot of work that's been done that probably couldn't have been done or wouldn't have been done otherwise. And I think, recently with the DAO hiring Hefe, sort of on an ongoing basis as a project manager really adds a lot because, when someone's just a volunteer or when they're just kind of even on a short-term kind of bounty, it's really hard to not have anyone to hold accountable. But when the DAO says, "Hey, we're going to bring you on. We're going to expect that you produce, regular work for the DAO week to week, and you have sort of a mandate," that's then a person that you can really hold accountable for doing day-to-day work and performing the day-to-day operations of the DAO. Things like Hefe hosting these meetings. Created a Notion site recently that's going to be a one-stop resource for all different things for the DAO and all the other things that Hefe is working on. And I know there was also talk about, what if we had a similar type of position that was more of a technical lead? who's kind of on retainer by the DAO, because we've run into issues where we either have submissions from compensated DAO contributors that need to be reviewed from a technical standpoint, or we have technical work product that the DAO itself needs to produce. That's just difficult to get done without the DAO having its a resource. Right now, everything sort of flows through the DTF, just sort of because DTF has the budget to deal with these things. But keep in mind, the DTF itself is made up of, all, as far as I know, all volunteers. And the DTF may or may not have a person with a certain skill set or bandwidth to do the work of, doing technical things or other things that require special skill sets. So, think about, what does this kind of look like years down the road, rather than saying, oh, okay, well, now we need a technical lead. Okay, let's find a technical person. Let's think about what does the DAO look like several years down the road. What's the DAO going to need to look like to get to the next stage of its growth? I know there's kind of that roadmap for the DAO, the cocoon stage, and so on and so forth. And what's it going to take to get the DAO into a place where more can be done on chain, and that the DAO can operate more independently from Pixelcraft. So, sort of this DAO structure document here was myself and a couple other members just kind of taking a stab at, what something like this might look like. What's an idea of what something like this might look like? And this may be something that the DAO wants to work towards, or it may not be. But I think the main point is to think about, I think it's important for the DAO to have a plan for what the DAO looks like several years from now, and what the different roles in the DAO might be several years from now. And so that we can kind of work with a long-term vision towards a plan, and not just sort of ad hoc, fill holes as we go. It just tends to be a better, cleaner, more cohesive way to build an organization. So that's kind of where this document comes from. I guess I know, Hefe, should I just walk through this kind of document, the different layers in this document? And I'm not going to go into minutia detail about this, but just kind of explain what the different layers are and what the idea was.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the best area of this chart to address right now is that left side where you have the different layers and their roles and kind of responsibilities at each level, and we can give it just a high level overview and let people kind of look at this and work through it themselves and digest it, and then maybe we can have another follow-up conversation once people have had a good chance to take a look at this and develop some insights, and then we can have another kind of follow-up segment next week also.
Yeah. So at the top of this chart, you've got the DAO itself. So just as it does today, the DAO votes on protocol changes, and then the DAO sort of oversees everything below it. I'm going to skip the executive committee layer and come back to that in a second. You've got the department leads layer, which is that purple layer in the middle. So, think of this as the people, the DAO contributors who are the ones who are, basically getting shit done day to day. They're the ones who are actually doing the work. They're making the vision of the DAO become a reality. So, today that's basically where Hefe lives. Hefe is someone that the DAO can hold accountable for getting certain tasks done that need to be done on a regular basis, and for keeping us all on track. And then below that, you've got an adjunct support layer. And this is kind of the way I would think about this layer would be all of the kind of the bounties, the contributors, if you were running the DAO as a traditional company, these are your these are your freelancers, your contractors who you bring in on an as needed basis. They work on a project by project basis, letting their skill set to the DAO. The way I see it, you want to think about like who's holding who accountable within this DAO, within the organization. So I think it makes sense right now, if you think about what really has been happening, is you have the DTF, and basically anyone who's paid by the DAO is just held accountable by the DTF, and then maybe that works if there's like, a couple of proposals outstanding and Hefe. But, you can imagine over time, you might have 10 or 15, active proposals ongoing. You might have a technical lead. You might have, a Hefe project managing. And sooner or later, all you've got this kind of amorphous kind of group of uncompensated people who are in charge of kind of overseeing all of this work and holding everyone accountable. So that's where I kind of came up with the idea here. We kind of came up with the idea of this kind of executive committee, which performs a role that's like similar to what the DTF provides today, but it's basically an interface between the DAO and all of these compensated individuals who are doing the work of the DAO. And the way I see it, the reason for that layer is because you can't really have an individual being accountable to the entire DAO. It just typically it's good. You want, it's just like if you have a job, you want to know who you're reporting to, you want to know who you're answering to, and nobody wants to work for a group of, a loosely organized group of thousands of people. It doesn't typically tend to go well. So, the idea here is that the DAO itself would elect a committee, sort of in the same way that the DTF was voted on, elected by the DAO. To sort of be that group that oversees everything else going on below. So they would oversee these department leads, which would be the people in charge of day-to-day work. The department leads would oversee all of the kind of, one-off project, adjunct support, people who are doing, that work. And, the idea here would be that the executive committee is elected, I would think maybe with some type of a term limit. And I would suggest that maybe we might think about compensating that committee because it wouldn't be as many, say, hours and as much work as the department leads have to do, but there would still be a fair amount of work, even just in being in charge of hiring and sort of organizing the department leads. So that's kind of just like at a broad scope, like the different kind of layers here. And in terms of like the department leads layer, you'll notice there's sort of 6 roles put in there that I think cover the roles that most organizations need. But it's important to note that a lot of times, when you build an org chart like this, you're going to start with combining some of these roles. Typically as organizations grow, individuals within the organization go from sometimes wearing many hats to wearing fewer hats and specializing over time. So you might start with, an operations /finance /HR lead, and you might start with a communications /product lead, and then a technology lead. So you might start with 3 people, but over time those roles break out and become more roles. So I just want to make that clear too. You can kind of draw a line between where we are today with the DAO, the DTF, and Hefe, and then all of the adjunct support staff, and think about how you might grow that out into this type of a structure. So that's kind of the broad overview. So I'll leave it to everyone else to comment and whatnot.
Yeah, and I mean, it's really branching. I mean, you said it perfectly. Right now, it's the DAO going to the DTF, going to me, and then I'm interfacing with the community, whatever funded projects we have working on right now. And, building out the Notion and some of the other things you had mentioned. But that is, there's only so much one person can do. After that, you have to branch out if you want to increase scale or the quality of work being done. So as to not also overload one person. I mean, at this point, I feel fine, doing everything we're doing, but there will be a day when we have, half a dozen to a dozen projects working, that have been funded by the DAO, some of them being very large projects that maybe even require their own PMs. And there will need to be a group of people that are in communication with some of these projects, and maybe even helping, providing assistance with some of these initiatives community members are carrying out. This is going to be, I'm one branch right now, and we may need many more branches in the future, I guess, is the general kind of general takeaway. If anybody is kind of looking at this being like, this is a lot of moving parts. I'm one branch, and there will be a time where we'll probably need more branches. So we just need to discuss what those branches might actually look like. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd like to talk a little bit about current state. Mikey did a phenomenal job talking about big picture, like what we need. And it's really important to understand, like, this isn't advocating for 6 different people to be hired right now. This is needs that we see in the DAO now and the future, and like what a structure might look like to get there. And then it's also helpful to understand like what current state is, how the DTF works. Like basically it's 7 of us on the DTF that try to process applications. And we're like kind of slow. We're like a month behind on reviewing and getting back to some applications from people, like even in this room. And that's why we hired Hefe on, as a project manager was to help us from just the DTF side of things. So not necessarily saying Hefe is one of these branches or these leads that's there, but assisting where we are in current state and helping us to develop like what is a more sustainable state. And, as we talk about, there might be a day where we have half a dozen or a dozen projects. Like we're already there. Like we've funded, 14, 15 projects, but we don't have the bandwidth to like check in with them, provide accountability, give updates to the DAO on where their funds went and why that was a good expense or why it wasn't. And so it's become like really clear doing the day-to-day work in the DTF that I worry we're not doing a good enough job to the DAO, providing that bidirectional accountability, both to the people that we funded, making sure they're doing their job, but also backwards to the DAO to say that this was money well spent and this is where it's all going. And I think that part of the frustration can be like, oh, I don't even know this meeting is going on. I don't know like who we're funding, like where is this money going? And then that could create some uncertainty about more formal structures. But I think of that as like a symptom that we need better structure. We need a common place where everything on the DAO is going on. And we need people to own that and be accountable for forming that in order to improve the communications.
Yeah, well said. I think that is it. That was a good high level overview. I'm just looking at some of the questions here. There's trying to address the questions that are maybe not. We won't have to go into the details of it right now. I see Choina has put up merge eDTF multi-sig signers into the DTF or list separately under the DTF. They're specifically talking about the multi-sig signers and their relationship to the DTF. Are the multi-sig signers all DTF members, I guess, is what this is asking.
No, so the DTF has 7 signers on it. Addison is one of them. And then, we tried to form the extended DTF to be the big, like more secure group of multi-sig signers, but then there was the issues with needing to docs and having everyone docs on time, and then some members weren't willing to do that. And so we never even used the extended DTF that we created, but we need to, right? We need to have that multi-sig that will own like the big liquidity pools, or if the bonding curve is turned off, like where are those funds going? How can we maintain legal compliance? Like what does a legal entity look like? So these are really big, difficult questions that will need funding and a lot of time and commitment from community members to figure out. And possibly within the structure that we're looking at, that like DAO executive committee at the top, like could be composed of the multi-sig signers that are on the big multi-sig that would essentially control what's happening with all the funds. But certainly within like if we had a DAO roadmap, it would be figuring out that multi-sig and maybe dissolving the DTF into some structure, right? Like if we had someone take on a finance and operations lead or communications lead, you could imagine like they would be responsible for doing what I'm doing right now, which is like chairing the DTF and holding that accountable. And then we could probably disintegrate the 7-person multi-sig.
Okay, cool. All of this is I thank you guys for coming up here this morning and sharing some of this. All of this implies an evolution, which is exactly what it is. It's an evolution towards the next stage of what the DAO is going to be able to accomplish. We talk about us currently being in cocoon and eventually moving towards metamorphosis, but that's a gradual process, and it's not something that happens quickly. Because we do need feedback from the rest of the community also, and I started out with this one position with the DAO, but we're gonna have to actually have a like you say, bi-directional accountability for us to scale as a DAO and be able to hold certain people liable for certain things. And yeah, this was just a good general overview. I'm kind of being hesitant to go into the details of it till people can really have a look at this and form their opinions. And I think this is a good overview for now. I'm just wondering if you guys have any questions regarding to what we just went over here regarding just the general layers, I guess, pertaining to the specific layers. Do you guys have any questions regarding that for now?
I do have one
Yeah.
question, which is about the executive committee, where it talks about recommend initiatives to the DAO and sets organizational goals and priorities. I guess that's the tougher part for me. It's because you want to have like how it's stated here, the the executive committee would kind of be doing thinking for the DAO and then also taking thinking from the DAO. So it would ideally be kind of a two-way street there, where it's, I guess, potentially introducing new ideas to the DAO, kind of like a think tank, and then having them vote on them, and then also taking the ideas from the DAO and moving them to implementation. So is that also how you guys envision it?
I think I envisioned it a little bit more of taking the sort of temperature of the DAO and sort of trying to take in all of that sort of fire hose of community input and synthesizing it into something that can be actionable. And I think the idea here is that, with the department leads, I think you want everyone to be on the same page in terms of what are the organizational priorities, so that you don't have a bunch of different people thinking that we need to be working on X when actually the DAO really wants us to be working on Y, that type of thing.
Yeah, I think
so. It's just about like they can be the ones to sort of synthesize everything that the DAO's saying into some type of formal document that is visible to the DAO, that says, hey, for the next, say, 3 months, for the next quarter or whatever, here are the kind of 3 critical priorities that we have going on. And so that everyone's on the same page about, what's being worked on when and what has what level of priority. And maybe that has some type of a formal document that gets voted on by the DAO and approved by the DAO in some way too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that's honestly, that's probably the thing that we're missing right now as a DAO. We kind of know our mandate, which is to govern the Avagachi protocol. But exactly, there's a lot of people that they've never read the contracts. They don't even know, DAO facet, that what is in there. We know the things like wearables and haunts, but it goes a lot. There's the potential for a lot more beyond that. And that kind of needs to be codified into a document so the DAO knows what it's trying to accomplish. Otherwise, it's going to kind of, I feel like it would go in a lot of different directions, like you're saying, and various people would have various like ideas that they think is what the DAO should be doing, but maybe the DAO doesn't agree with that, and there could be a potential for conflict there. So I wonder if it's like one meta step we need to take before we do this kind of breakdown of various roles, would be actually formalizing a document as a community and saying, this is what we believe the Aavegotchi DAO should, like, the kind of the roadmap or like the mandate for the next 5 years on the things we believe it should be handling. Is that, what do you guys think of that idea?
I like that a lot because, again, like if you don't have something like that to kind of ground the DAO, and this happens in every organization. I mean, we're talking about a lot of people here in the DAO, but even if you've got 5 people trying to build a product, and on Wednesday, someone decides, man, wouldn't it be cool if we did this? And then before you know it, you're way off what you're trying to do. So every organization needs some type of, something to keep them on track, And so I 100% agree. Some type of document like that would be excellent. Yeah.
And I mean, I've actually made room for all that stuff on the Notion. There is a place for a DAO roadmap to live. There's also a place for a DAO SOP and a funding SOP. So trying to put all those things together, and hopefully I'm thinking, with the exception of the roadmap, which will take probably a lot longer, but at least to have a basic SOP for some of the processes in the DAO. For me, mainly regarding funding, getting your funding, applying for it, all that stuff. So I want to start that process at least.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And one last thing about that document, one of the things I really love about documents like that is that you can have just kind of like I've always called it like the parking lot. I don't know if other people call it that, but it's basically like, okay, this is an awesome idea, but it's just like, we don't need to do it today, but we want to capture it, right? And that way, by being able to write it down somewhere and put it somewhere, that way when someone brings it up again and they're like, oh yeah, we should do that thing. Okay, we've got it. It's a great idea. We're just not doing it today. And we've got it in the parking lot. And then, periodically, quarterly, whatever, you visit that parking lot and you see if anything should be elevated. So it just makes people feel better when their idea is kind of captured and it's somewhere and it's not just lost and forgotten. So
yeah, for us, that's the Jira. We just put it in the Jira. It's in there. It exists. It's been mentioned.
Yeah, 100%. And maybe, with that being said, I can quickly just show you guys the Notion. This is the meeting we're working on today, but this is the main Notion page for anyone watching the live stream. Or actually, I can even share the page too here. Oh, I have to be careful to not share the wrong link because it gives people. There's two links. There's a public and then there's like an editing access. So you have to make sure you share the right one. Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for going through the work and putting this together for the community. I think it's a great start. A lot of good stuff to go over and ideate on. What is do we have any thoughts on how this goes forward for the next couple months here? Maybe with maybe the drafting of a guiding doc and then moving forward on. Are we keep discussing this every week, or what are your guys' thoughts on how to keep moving this forward?
One thought I had was it might make sense for the DAO to commission some type of it basically more or less what you would call like a business plan for the DAO, or you might call it like a growth plan, where there's perhaps maybe a group of people who would maybe have the skill sets of some of these department leads, sort of trying to, formalize, sort of a short document for the DAO that kind of describes, how this would actually work on a day-to-day basis, and to kind of flush that out. It's if you were starting a business or if you were growing your business to the next level, to kind of put together, okay, what are the things the DAO wants to get done from a marketing standpoint? What are the things financially operational that we need to get done? And I think most importantly, it starts with what is the product stuff that wants to get done, because all the other stuff is just basically overhead that's paying for the work product, right? So I think that's the most important question, is like, what does the DAO want to do? What are the products that the DAO wants to produce that are going to either promote the protocol or grow the protocol, or develop new technical dApps, or what is it? Because I think without that, it's hard to think about the other stuff, because like operations and finance and HR, I mean, that's just overhead stuff that helps the product work it done. But I mean, personally, like, I'm not very clear on what the work is, and I think like starting to get an understanding from the DAO about like what the work is that needs to get done will help us figure out how to move forward.
That's my concern as well. It's easy to say, we need a business plan, but like, who's gonna do that, right? Who's gonna do the work, and who has good enough understanding of the broad stakeholders in the community, like the technical things that we need to overcome, and who's gonna like invest the time to make essentially a DAO roadmap and business plan. So my idea was that we start lean with people that like, if we hired people on for a couple roles, like stay lean, but have people that did fit some of these skill sets, like that would be the deliverable that I expect from them. Like the deliverable, like success to me would look like we have a good DAO agreed upon business plan and DAO roadmap, and then paths towards achieving those goals on the roadmap, with some people that are accountable to not just producing the roadmap, but also helping facilitate those steps that are on it.
Yeah, I think it's also important at this stage that we not be too ambitious what the DAO is trying to accomplish, because the DAO is a decentralized organization, and just things move a little bit slower in the decentralized world. I think we can all agree. I would think most people can agree on that, because you want to get full consensus from the whole community on things. So my view is kind of the DAO is it has, and this is where we are currently. Maybe there's room for expansion here, but where I kind of see where we are now is governing the Avagachi protocol and the various like economic features of it, and then that would be the main goal. And then goal 2 is providing the kind of the tooling and visibility into what's happening in the protocol to allow us to make the best decisions we can for the protocol. And if we could just get those two like that, if those were the main 2 things we focused on, I think that that would already be like the training wheels version of a more autonomous DAO. And then beyond that, if we can accomplish that, then we can move on to things like maybe the DAO, makes its own. Like a team applies to actually make another game on Avagachi, or we start doing like DAO focused marketing, things like that. But I feel like those would be a little bit more advanced.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. I think that's completely accurate. And yeah, I think one of the fun parts about a DAO is you can figure out like where you plug in, like how your skill sets fit in under these. And I think a lot of people are excited about like the communications lead aspect there, right? Like that's fun. That's the external focused stuff. But I think the DAO would benefit from tightening up the operations and finance side and economics and protocol governance, really what protocol governance means. And that document will really help us understand like what is Avagachi protocol and like what's Gotchiverse, what's different, then how can we govern those best? So I agree with that stepwise approach.
Absolutely. Really good discussion, guys. Even the community feedback is great here. I'm just reading all that and trying to make the Notion more functional and available for you guys this coming week so you can actually have some more hands on it. I know I'll get hardcore hooked up with that. And it truly this is the meta of the game right now for some of us, where it's like the early levels and baby steps for sure. We don't want to, I think Coder Dan's point also, we don't want to lose that community connection with the decentralized DAO and start suddenly pulling away from those opinions and valuing, because with this structure some opinions will be valued more and they do provide value, but we also don't want to leave behind maybe someone who has just joined the DAO who has really valuable experience to contribute, but then they get left out because the structure just doesn't allow for them to actually get in there and provide some sort of feedback or contribution.
Yeah, I like our role at Pixelcraft. We're kind of a top-down entity, right? We have CEO, COO, things like that, and we have a vision for what we're trying to accomplish as a company. Whereas the DAO is kind of the opposite. It's a bottom-up organization. There's lots of discussion. I mean, there's no guiding document right now. So once we have that will probably also help focus the DAO a little bit more. But even with that, it's still going to be just this kind of pool of insight constantly churning around. And from that, what we hope is, from Pixelcraft side, we love having the DAO because great ideas percolate to the top of the DAO over time. And those ideas are things that we might have never thought of. And I think that's kind of the power of the DAO. And whatever kind of organizational structure it emerges from it, we definitely want to keep that power and that kind of collective insight and make sure that continues to find its way into all aspects of Avagachi.
And I think the goal, for me at least, would be, those ideas percolate. You're like, yeah, that would be a great idea. And then the DAO can not just say, okay, then do it, but we could prep it or do it or execute as much of it as possible. And I think we need to compensate people and find able people that can both envision what that looks like and execute it. And that's kind of my medium to long-term goal for the DAO, is not to just hand things off to you guys.
Totally. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right on. Okay. Do we have any other things to cover regarding this? I feel like we've given people a good overview here, and maybe for those of you who are looking at this, have a look at the roles, look at the general structure, and let's follow up on this next week again. I'm totally down to give this some time every meeting. Maybe it's 20 minutes, maybe it's 30. And actually speak on this as needed moving forward. Maybe if every week is too much, then we but I think we should regularly follow up on this, and even as a group, take in people's feedback. And I've left a couple stickies there, so if you're looking at this later tonight or a couple days from now and you decide or you see something that we didn't cover here, please post all your questions on the Miro board, because then that'll give us a good place to follow up the next week and see what what you guys would really like to know about this from us.
Hefe, if you don't mind, I have to get back to work, but I wanted to bring up the single active proposal, which is my proposal on DAO parcels and Alchemica. You didn't already talk about this earlier, did you? But basically, I'm asking that we mint some parcels in the DAO district and send those plus a relatively small amount of Alchemica, 4 million milliequivalents worth, to the DTF to help compensate contributors. The most immediate need for this is Tamagotchi or Marvin wanted to fulfill a bounty, wanted to be paid in KEK, and we don't have any KEK to give him from the DTF. But I think what a cool option, right, to leverage and use our non-ghost protocol assets to compensate the community. And I would love other contributors to say, like, yeah, I want alpha or KEK too, and then we can use our big amounts in the DAO to do that. And then kind of secondly, I am thinking more and more about how we can keep and maintain our contributors. We have so many amazing people in the community, and I really want to make it through this bear market with as many contributors still here as possible. And I think we can use our DAO assets to like really recognize and acknowledge the amazing contributions. And I think we could do cool things with NFT displays, the DAO parcels, the fake Gachi stuff that's coming out, to like really have a fun DAO district and recognize our contributors. And so that's the ask for the DAO parcels. I don't know exactly how many are in the DAO district, but it's a lot, and 50 is not too many. And then feedback I'm wanting from the community is like, is this a good idea? First of all, if it's not, that's okay. And then secondly, which parcels should we mint from the DAO? It'd be really nice to have a thoughtful way about distribution instead of just randomly giving ones out. So I'm really open to feedback from you guys on that.
I mean, I think it's a great idea. I've been talking to some community members who, for one reason or another, are a little bit apprehensive to actually receiving payment from the DAO, which is, it's crazy to say that, but some people actually are happy to contribute to the DAO in whatever capacity. And actually, they're not looking for direct compensation with Ghost. They're thinking, well, maybe I could have assets, or like you were saying with Marvin, maybe some KEK. And so having those options would actually allow us to make, to make deals with people who don't necessarily want those, the current compensation that the DAO can offer, basically. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, so kind of my ask is to move some of those assets into the hot wallet of the DAO, which is essentially the DTF. That way we don't have to have a SIG prop for Marvin's KEK.
Yeah, grids, the fun planner on the sheet. I don't know, man. I feel like GMI does a pretty good job of that, but that's just me. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, I think it's a reasonable request. If you guys don't have any opposition to that, maybe we could put out a proposal for this. And, I guess is there going to be some sort of my one question is, there going to be some sort of vetting process on who's going to be getting these parcels? Are they going to be given out on a conditional basis, or the type of work being done? Is there going to be some sort of screening that's done for who's going to get these parcels or this sort of Alchemica, or will it be more upon request?
So I already submitted the Signal proposal. It expires after the meeting next Sunday, so there's 7 more days for it. And I would like a kind of methodical way for it. I think there'll be low-hanging fruit for awesome contributors over time that everyone would agree should have their own cool NFT display and parcel in the DAO district. But it would also be nice to have, if you have 3 meaningful contributions to the DAO, then you earn a parcel or something like that, where it's more clear that this type of contribution gets you this level of compensation. I do not have that written up. I think that could be something either for you to work on or for people in the DAO to consider more. But this at least I think can help us in the short term. And for now, it would be the DTF that would be vetting who receives these. And I am obviously open to feedback, right? Like if you could nominate and say, this person is awesome, give them a parcel, and then you could take that to the DTF and then they could go through it. And we'll need a better process than that, but I'm confident we can do it.
I think community nominations are a great start. That sounds awesome, honestly. And then just taking that to the DTF for evaluation, and look at what sort of work's been done, and then just make the decision from there. So I think it's a good idea. All right. Do we have any other questions regarding this topic here, regarding the 30 DAO parcels for the DTF to use as contributor compensation, as well as about 4 million FUD equivalent of Alchemica?
I just had one question: would the DAO be open to buying and burning some existing parcels that aren't really being used very much? Or because the DAO did vote not to have any more auctions, which was basically no more parcels. So I'm just wondering, would that be part of this, or these would be minted in addition to the current supply? Is that was that something you considered in the proposal?
I hadn't considered it. The DAO owns hundreds and hundreds of parcels, right? So I hadn't considered that
they haven't
we
minted
needed
yet.
to buy more. I know. But if that was the route that the group wanted to go, I also think that could be a reasonable strategy moving forward, right? If we did loot boxes as the DAO, right? And we wanted to have items in the loot boxes, you could buy them from the bazaar and do them that way. So there is a way to use DAO funds to support asset prices and then include them for distribution. So I'm open to feedback on it, but that wasn't the initial plan. If it's prohibitive from a Pixelcraft perspective and minting specific parcels in the DAO district, then we need to consider that for sure.
No, it's just more obviously the DAO does have its area. It's just those parcels haven't really been minted yet, and they haven't been distributed. So this distribution would add to the total supply, which is, I think, it's 25,000 right now, or 30,000. So if we didn't want to add to total supply, the DAO would need to buy and burn some parcels or do something, or otherwise we're minting 30 new parcels, which is also fine.
Yeah, I have pretty low concern that this is going to be the dilutional effect that pushes us over the edge. I'll be incredibly disappointed if our most longstanding respected contributors sell their DAO parcel, but whatever you guys want to do.
And given the fact that these DAO parcels will be distributed the way that we're proposing here, well, at least these 30, I think it's a huge flex to own a DAO parcel. So, I mean, we see the value of the District 27 parcels in Pixelcraft Square. And so this is, in my opinion, implies even more value. But you're right, be disappointing to see that. It would be like the park keeper selling his quarters. It's like you don't want to stay in the park anymore. Yeah. Okay. Cool. We will see what the SIG prop outcome is for that. But I feel like the sentiment is good overall. Thank you too for coming up here today. I know Dr. Wagme, you are actually on the grind as we speak, and so I appreciate you taking the time and coming up here for that.
Yeah, thanks guys, appreciate it.
So we do have a few more things just to cover. If there is some time left here today, Coder Dan, I would like to still go over a few things. I want to talk about the two big items first, and I'm glad we were able to have really healthy discussions around Governor DAO and the DAO structure for us. There are a few other items on our list here. We can quickly kind of cover them, and if you guys have any questions or concerns, we can again follow up next week. And so the next item I have on my list here, the vote for new wearables in the future. So again, another long-term kind of outlook on this one, the Wearables Task Force has put together a vote for us to look at some really interesting ideas for new wearable sets. And so there's a spreadsheet here. You can go look at the proposed. Actually, these are the proposed sets there, as well as there's a ongoing vote here. New wearable sets, and these are for existing wearables only. This is something where we will implement for rarity farming, for example. They've come up with some really interesting combinations. I would like to see. Is Phantasma actually in the crowd here right now? Yeah, Phantasma. Are there, either in the chat or on stage, are there actually visual representations of these sets that people can go check out? Is that on the spreadsheet? No. These are actually clickable links. All right. So I'm assuming it takes you to Discord, right, where all these things are. All these you can go check these out. Okay, perfect. Yeah. Okay, so actually go check out this spreadsheet here. Share it with you guys. Oh, there you go. Yeah. Go check out that spreadsheet. Look at the links, check out the sets, and then head back over to the post there and submit your votes. Currently, we have 4 voters, and you can choose multiple options, and then that will at least expand the line of wearable sets that we have, and kind of just increase some competitiveness for the next rarity farming season. I was also thinking it'd be interesting to have this to kind of highlight these. If you guys would like, GMI can put together a Halloween contest, and we can have people dress up with the current wearables, and you come up with a name for your set, for what your outfit is, and maybe a little description if you want to add a little story, and we can go through. Maybe we can put up a little bit of prize money or something to make it a little bit fun. But definitely go check this out, and if you guys would like to do a Halloween contest or something to show these off, we'd definitely be happy to do so. Yeah, so that was this. Go check it out. The next item on the list, I believe this was a post by Notorious BTC, and keeping some tiles mintable forever. And so the idea behind this was here. Let's go back here. The idea behind this was to have some sort of assets that people could put on their land when we're not doing special minting. Specifically, I think this was pertaining to tiles, and Zbot indicated that 1x1 plain tiles might be an option. And so some people are also saying that unlimited editions are a great idea, so long as they're non-transferable. Kind of want to know what your guys' input is on this. Should we have like some boilerplate, basic tile that if someone wanted to, put this on their land, either for filler or for whatever reason, really, maybe they just don't like the empty space on their parcel and they don't want to go buy tiles. Is there any sort of questions or concerns you have around that? For me personally, I think one of the things to consider is what impact would that have on the current market for tiles? Like, would someone say, I'm not going to go buy these mosaic tiles because they cost 1 to 2 ghosts at least each. Instead, what I'm going to do is just make my own like free cheap tiles. Like, is that something we want to consider? I don't think these tiles would be sellable on the bazaar. I think this post mentioned that. Do we have any thoughts on that? And I guess there's also some suggestions. Will we have seen more Alchemica burned if all those mosaics all remained open? Would more people mint and build on their land? Hardcore saying, yes, we need basic single 1x1 color tiles, and they should come in 64 colors. One by one tiles will be minted endlessly if we provide colors. Okay, so some people are saying we don't want neutral colors. We want actually a whole range of colors. Yeah, I agree. No future, there'd be some tile inflation if they were part of the current market also. But it's also something nice to have for people to craft. Yeah, crafting new stuff continues to burn. Okay, Coder Dan, we debated this a lot internally for the tile release and ended up doing the limited edition because they're NFTs. One potential tile idea we have is a tile that speeds up movement, so it would have utility but not be as aesthetic. Ooh, I really like that. In your opinion, would these be these would not be a limited edition? This is something you could put on infinitely. You can mint infinite amounts of these. Airport conveyor belt tile. Yeah. I like the idea of having maybe not an aesthetic, like removing that aesthetic value, but increasing the utility value maybe. Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, so Coder Dancing, yeah, it can make sense to not be limited edition in this case, I think. And then Gotchi 15. Basic tiles should be simple, and seeing as they're just crafted from Alchemica, should come in red, green, blue, and purple. Oh, I like that's a pretty cool idea. Maybe they would just look like similar, because we're looking at this as these are materials. This Alchemica stuff is a resource. It's a material, and so if you're gonna create a basic tile, it should just look like that material. Maybe the one that uses more FOMO is gonna be a red tile. The one that uses more alpha be like an alpha tile. You could have like the 4 Alchemica tiles. It's interesting. Yeah, continue providing your feedback on that. If the community thinks it's a good idea, and maybe if there is a alternative type of tile. Ooh, yeah, I really like Coder Dan's idea, to be honest. Maybe we should flesh that idea out a little bit more and see if we do want an unlimited mintable utility runway tile or speed up boost tile. That'd be really cool. And would make for actually some interesting gamification on parcels. Because what you could do is you can now have gotchi races, and if they're able to, maybe you have a couple parcels of land adjacent, you could have like a huge kind of like obstacle course / racing track with these tiles. I think it'd be really interesting. Kind of like in Super Mario, where you have those patches for speed ups and stuff. Yeah, tar pits. Well, yeah, I mean, what if that's a good point there, Gadfly. What if you have tiles that speed up, but you also have tiles that slow you down? That would be an interesting dynamic, actually. Yeah. Okay. So let's keep talking about this. Let's maybe see if we can flesh this idea out a little bit more. And I agree. Yeah, great mini game potential there. You could actually create some sort of a game on your parcels by minting whatever amount of speed ups and whatever amount of slowdown tiles, and create really unique, combinations on your parcel. Yeah, quicksand tile, exactly. Yeah, very cool. Let's keep talking about that. We'll follow up on it next weekend if you guys think it's a good idea. What's the next thing here? Loot boxes is something we touched on. It might be a longer conversation to have, but I want to show you guys something today regarding loot boxes. This is a DApp John Gotchi has built. It's a fairly basic DApp. He used 3D assets, like free 3D assets, and he's put this together. And what it basically is, he's built all the back-end smart contract stuff with this, but you connect your wallet's connected, and then you can actually like move this around, so it's a 3D environment, and you can actually click on these loot boxes, and it'll actually open up with your 4 Alchemica types. And this is one kind of facet of his school that he's developing right now, John Gotchi's Web3 school. But I could see this easily being implemented as some sort of loot box system. If you click on this keck here, I think it will bring up it brings up a pop-up. You sign a transaction, and then it actually adds that Alchemica type to your wallet. So it's an interesting, here, it's still very much a work in progress. This is a prototype, but this was really interesting. He showed me this last week. So basically what I'm trying to say is, if you guys want to implement a loot box type system, I think we may have someone already in the DAO that might have some sort of a working product around this, and it would be a matter of making the changes to implement it for whatever we're trying to do. So yeah, just wanted to quickly show you guys that's John Gotchi's DApp with loot boxes. It's something he wants to continue to develop. He's been doing these challenges where you can play with smart contracts and try and find certain codes which will give you access to these loot boxes. I think he recently did one with a pirate, and there was like a pirate NFT that you would receive if you found the pirate, and that was kind of an interesting style of treasure hunt. And he had this loot box available for those that were able to find the pirate. I believe that's what it was. So yeah, this is really cool. I'm really impressed with John Gotchi's Web3 product, and I think we'll get him up here on stage sometime soon and have him take you guys through what he's working on. It's really quite impressive. So just wanted to quickly show you that, since you mentioned loot boxes. But this, addressing the loot boxes discussion, there is a thread on it here. And this is taking an idea from Squishverse. I'm not familiar with Squishverse, but it's another NFT game on Ethereum, and they do this loot box system. So we can, please look at that thread and just try and form some opinions, and we can see if loot boxes are something we want to implement as a community. It would make for a fun dynamic and something for us to do. So yeah, and if that is something we want to do, then we do kind of have some community members who are smart contract proficient, who can actually make something like this. Okay, I think we only have one or two more items here. The Avagachi Wearables market dashboard, that is something Mikey J put together. I just wanted to point that out and give him a shout out for this pretty incredible product. There's a lot of data on here and some really good data points that are just interesting. So definitely go check out Mikey J's wearable report. Bearded's raffle contract was a fun potential implementation of something, not a loot box, but I wonder what ever happened to that. To be honest, a loot box is trivial to implement. What do you think about the community loot boxes, just in terms of just engagement amongst yourselves, whether it's in what do you mean by trivial, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Oh, the regulatory, because of gambling? Because it's kind of like gambling? Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, it depends on, are you spending money on the loot boxes to try and find them, or are you buying the loot boxes? That would definitely have to be a discussion. Yeah, I agree, Hardcore. It could be cool if you could plug it into mini games, into the verse, and on Discord, a loot box plugin. Yeah, it's interesting. You could put something in the loot box, and maybe the functionality with John Gotchi's product is you can put anything in there. So it supports all different token types, not just ERC20s. It supports 721s, 1155s. So could even be a way to distribute badges or collect specific badges for challenges, and there's a lot of functionality there. So there may be a way for us to get away from the gambling aspect of it. In China, they get around legal barriers. People donate money, they give them in a loot box. Is that the red envelope you were talking about the other day? I think he had mentioned something similar like that with money. Yeah, red envelope. Oh, that's different. Okay. It's that red envelope thing sounded pretty interesting actually yesterday. We could. Yeah, loot box and red envelope could be integrated. Probably are. Right on. Well, I don't know if we have a whole lot else to talk about here today. We covered some pretty big topics. Please just have a look at some of these other ones I just mentioned, and let's maybe have a deeper discussion on the ones you guys think are going to be the most the community really wants implemented. But other than that, I don't have anything else. There's a Gotchi space tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Eastern. So yeah, if you guys want to continue the conversation, Gotchi space, that is the place to have it. We're gonna, as for this week, for myself, I will continue working on the Notion. I am currently also talking to the ATF members and the arcade. The development of the arcade, which will be a game hosting platform. That's going to be really exciting. When the time comes, we'll definitely present all the details of that to you guys and get some feedback on it. What else? Yeah, the Notion page is going to be the big one for this week. And then also check out my blog. I've started an Aavegotchi DAO weekly blog. I actually it's the old Substack that I was using for weekly Hangout updates. Which will now actually be done through video interface, and I'm going to be doing the written DAO weekly reports or newsletters. So check out my Substack. I have 50 subscribers already, but if you guys want to go subscribe to that, I would really appreciate it. It helps you too, because every time I publish a weekly newsletter, it will end up in your inbox, and you can get your weekly DAO updates there. If you miss the meeting, maybe in a couple minutes you'll be all caught up. That's my goal. So I'm trying to keep that simple for you, and so go subscribe to that. And I'll be putting the first post out today for the DAO discussion. So that's pretty much all I got for this morning here. Appreciate you guys coming out here on Sunday morning, hanging out with us and having these really big brain conversations. I don't know any DAOs right now or anybody in the space that's doing what we're doing, and that's why I think we're all still here and really excited about this. Otherwise, hope you all have a good rest of your weekend. We will, I don't think we have any events coming up during the week. Looking forward to the fake Gotchi launch here pretty soon, and yeah, exactly. Let's fucking go. Let's do it. Yeah, I appreciate all y'all. Later, friends.
Let the fucking go, cheese! Let the fucking go!
Had to do it. All right. Peace out.